Love putting your voice in like the old SM58 or whatever it is and getting in that little sweet spot that's like right there, and you put your voice right down there, and then there it is. One last point. Look how stoned Mike is.
Not me. I'm not going to be stoned if I put sunglasses on. That mic can be the stoned mic.
It'll just validate the fact that I'm stoned.
Why don't you tell me a story? Please tell me a story, too.
You know, I think I'll tell you the story of my life.
Tell me.
And it was kind of a slow week, too, so we thought I'd have my buddy Michael on. And Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
From the adventures of Michael Lee.
And I never realized he had a podcast. From the adventures of Michael Lee. He was pretty good at it. I mean, he was a lot of fun. And I never realized he had a podcast.
That's Mike from The Adventures of Michael Lee. No, he has a voice.
He does.
For radio.
Very creative. And I never realized he had a podcast.
And we also had Mike from The Adventures of Michael Lee. The amazing Michael of The Adventures of Michael Lee.
It is the Bay Area's #1 podcast for Michael Lee's.
Because it's way too much mic, we put a mic in between the mic.
Everybody. Now wait a minute. You know my baby, she won't let me in. I've got a few pennies. I'm gonna buy myself a bottle of gin, and then I'm gonna call my buddy on the telephone and say, now listen.
All right. What y'all doing? What am I doing over here messing with these sound systems and recording equipment? Construction's going on all over the place. Whew. Well, welcome to the Adventures of Michael Lee podcast. It's my mom's favorite podcast. I'm not sure if quite yet it's yours. I'm not sure if it's quite yet mine, but here we are nonetheless. Yeah, let's do a little bit of a bounce back from that last episode. Last one was kind of a downer. Little depressing, but we're bouncing back. We've got Mike Nault again on this podcast. So last time we had Mike on here, we were talking about his band and how we were getting into the conversations about him getting his Kickstarter going, his last performance, all that cool stuff. And I wanted to get him back in here to have more of a, post wrap up, more of just a conversation with Mike. And he had some time, so he stopped by. And I don't have too much prepared for the intro other than to deliver you the sit down that he and I had, which was a good time. But also just want to let you guys know that I'm back to having a good time. Kind of. I think there's been a lot of things that have kind of contributed to it, so hopefully you're feeling better. I know it's June now. If you don't live on the coast like I do, you're probably getting some sunshine, but here it's just been a complete whiteout. Just June gloom, but it's okay. I think doing a lot of research, some introspection, some physical activity. I've been trying to force myself to get into the gym every day this week, and I think not this week, but every day of the week since we last spoke, and I think I'm really only missing like 1 or 2 days here and there. Signed up at a new gym, which is kind of interesting. got my buddy David who signed up. So David Loaf is in there with me. So it's fun. I'm getting back in there. I think that physical activity has a lot to do with your your mental health and I don't know if it's mental health. What am I, a professional? I'm not a professional. What the fuck do I know about mental health? Let's just say my mental health. I can speak to my mental health. Can I? It's mine. It's not yours. So my mental health seems to be affected greatly by physical activity and getting in there, moving heavy shit around. And, it's cool when your buddy's there too. Which I think my buddy is here now, actually. So we're going to cut this short. I'm going to give you Michael Nault. I don't know what episode this is, but I fucking love you guys. I hope you love me back. I hope you love him as much as I do. Yeah, later.
You're a genius.
So you're saying that you're out of TV? You've been out of TV?
I have been without television in my life for the last month.
For the last month?
Last month.
What have you been living on?
I told myself that, given my career choice, I should have been an earlier adopter of things like the Fire Stick or things like you could name 12 others. But I found like I didn't even really look. I got Hulu and was sort of disappointed in that. But I just stopped watching television as much, other than a couple of key things. Like I found Comedy Central, and I can watch The Daily Show, which unfortunately is a tremendous source of news for me. But everything else, it's like you don't need it suddenly.
Right.
Yeah,
it almost becomes background noise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you just, whatever the Wednesday night lineup is or whatever the Friday night lineup is, you just kind of let it run. Like when we were kids, or when I was kids, whoever's listening, if you're my age, then when we were kids, there was the Friday night. It was like Full House and all these other shows, Family Matters, and you just sat in front of the TV. You turned it on at like 7 or whatever, and then when the last show was done at 10, you went to bed, right. And that was it. And nowadays, when you get your Hulu or you get your Netflix or your HBO account, you realize like of this whole network, I really only want to watch like one show, and then you have to sort of.
And I want to watch that one show for 18 hours uninterrupted until I'm done watching that show.
Right.
The whole new thing. That's like we were around for the first time that happened. Mm-hmm. It's like I remember I was living in LA. It was like 2007, something like that. I'd never seen this show before. I'm completely unemployed. Dark Angel.
I never seen that.
What's her name? She's from Pomona. Jessica Alba.
Jessica Alba's from Pomona? Yeah. I didn't know that.
And the show, she was like not superhero, but like it was a dark kind of crime kind of thing, and she was all leathered up. And
I get it. It's probably like a Sin City type.
Yeah, very Sin City.
Okay,
and that's probably the TV show that got her picked for the movie.
Oh, she was in the movie too.
She was in Sin City.
Oh, that's right.
See?
Memory sucks.
But it's like they played a show, and then they played another episode. They played another episode, and next thing you know, it's like I've spent morning, noon, and night on this mattress that I was living on in this room, watching nothing but the whole lifespan of that show. I watched it one day and never watched it again.
One and done.
Yeah, that's a new thing, But for me, the TV that I've stopped watching was the constant news cycle. Mm-hmm. I would just put like CNN on, because in my mind, this is fake, that's fake, blah, blah, blah. In my mind, CNN sort of, the reason they have shitty ratings is purely because they cater less to one side than another. You could clearly say they cater to the left, and I'm not going to say they don't in that argument, but
right.
On balance, and all the news organizations out there, I feel their ratings are lousy because they're a little less of that.
Well, plus they took a hit when they were like slammed for being exposed for really catering to their corporate sponsorships. Not that any other network doesn't, but right. I think there was some like people who were fired or quit that came out and were just like, yeah, this is what like True Story should have been, or this is how it should have went down, and then they didn't because the sponsorship didn't
know
approve.
that.
Yeah, I forget who. Whatever. I'm sure we'll forget all about it, but if I Google it later, I might find something for you. But anyways, I know guys who do that thing, the CNN spin round and round 24/7. I know guys who do that with SportsCenter. for sports, and then you go to their house, Sports Center's on in the morning, it's in the middle, it's at the end, and it's just like this constant. Yeah, like how many times can you cut an angle on every single baseball game, and then it's like the coolest moments, the not so coolest moments, you know, moments of the past, moments of the future. It's like, let it go. The game's over.
Yeah. And now there's so much more media to choose from.
Right, which is why ESPN also is another network that's lost a ton of ratings and fired a lot of people.
Yeah, because circling back to me, because everything circles back to me.
Back to you and so you don't have TV anymore.
Like I'm putting my little like with YouTube, all this other stuff. Everybody's contributing. Here we are doing it right now. You know, we're just piling another freaking haystack. You know, another little, what do you call it, grain of hay or strand of hay?
Strand of hay? No. Straw?
One more piece of straw.
Yeah.
We're putting one more piece of straw in that haystack with those people looking for the needle of genius that's in there.
Right. And you never know which straw is going to become a needle.
You don't.
You know what I mean? It's really weird because some people who thought they were straws soon found out they were needles, and everything, you know, changed. Their whole world changed.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about how just this simple podcast that I listen to generates 1 million downloads per month, or another one that has like hundreds of downloads per month. What do we got?
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like when you look at the ratings for TV shows and all these other things that you think are big stars, you find out that this little straw actually has more power than that needle, and then the roles are reversed. You know what I mean?
It can. You know,
music's like that too. You know, you take somebody who's just putting a band together, just throwing their stuff out there. Next thing you know, they're the next big thing.
Didn't Justin Bieber start as a YouTube act?
That's what I heard. I didn't see any of it, but that's the legend.
Yeah. That he was just this kid on a sofa playing an acoustic guitar.
Right.
I can see that. I can totally see that. But
yeah, and it's also, though, it's funny when people say, like, I saw an article yesterday, it was like dishwasher at a restaurant is now like a, $7 million business owner. And it's like, well, let's just say you and I won the lottery right now. You could say I was a dishwasher because at like 15, I think my first job was a dishwasher. It's like, at what point was this successful person not successful? It wasn't like it was last year. Right. He decided to put the dishes down and said, you know what, I'm just going to own this place. Like, it doesn't happen that way, But for sensation, it's always, the headlines or whatever to grab you. But anyways, what were we talking about?
The digital media haystack, right. Putting a needle of genius within it. I sent you the last two videos I did, and like I've really tried to be like, I heard the David Bowie album, and in hearing that, like, he didn't know he was going to die the whole time. He didn't until the very end, but the album ties up a whole bunch of loose ends, and it tells a really cool story, and it's really honest about what it is. And I'm like, how can I try to do that? How can I try to do that? And it's like, the whole, lemonade, whatever, if something shitty happens, try to make something out of it, and like try to make art of something that happens. And the most recent one I did, there was somebody who was in a band that I was in, and we were really close for a while, really close.
The song was about
her that I posted. The band that we had been in was the band that I quit my job for, moved 3,000 miles, lived in Echo Park, in the Echo Park that is not the Echo Park today, but the Echo Park of years gone by. And we were together for about 3 years in this band, trying to make it, kind of thing. At the end of the day, as many bands do, we had a really bad falling out. And on the day of that falling out, I wrote this song where it was like the chorus of it is, how long can you take all the sense I try to make? Ain't it rough and don't you hate when someone fails to hesitate and think? We were having this argument outside the house, and there's no one needs to know the whole story of what brought it here, but there was a conflict there, and then we never talked again, and as it turns out, 3-4 months ago, I get the Facebook friend request, which I summarily ignored, and I wasn't gonna. It's not so much that I can't let it go, so much as I didn't want to revisit anything. And then I find out a few days ago that, she took her life. We don't know if it was an accident. We don't know if it was on purpose.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know any of it. And it just clobbered me where it's like, was I that needle in the haystack that had she called me and we talked and everything would have been fine? You're probably not, but it's time is a thief. You're waiting for whatever, and that thing you were waiting for is gone because time took it. And I sat down at the piano, and the whole video is like 10 minutes long, and I'm bawling my eyes out, blah, blah, blah. But then I shut up for a second and I play. But it's like, I don't know, it seems like it might be too earnest. It seems like it might be too kitschy. It might be, you can clearly see, like, I'm singing, but I'm really like all sad and stuff, like in a way that I at once I sort of feel proud of putting it out there, and then at the same time feel like I shouldn't put it out there, or it looks, I don't know, not at all confident with it.
Yeah, well, that's part of the risk of being vulnerable, right? Is you're just like, with your finger hovering over the button, do I upload it? Do I submit it? Do I not? But ultimately, if that's how you were feeling, and like you said, you just throw a million straws out there into this haystack, then why the hell not? And you never know what's going to resonate with people, and whether you're never going to resonate with everybody. But
did you see it?
The last one, I should have watched it. I saw the back and forth. I was busy at work, and until you mentioned it right now, I remember the second to last, but I forgot to go back and watch this last one. But without seeing it, just the idea of it's probably better to give an opinion before I see it, because then I can't tell you if it was a hit or a miss. But I'll watch it again. I will update this podcast afterwards. I will repost the video so you can see it for yourself. If you're watching along right now, go ahead, or listening along, watching too on the GoPro. Right. Pause, watch that video, come back to us.
Come back for the edit.
And okay, hopefully you've seen the video. Okay, so I haven't seen the video yet, but I'm just saying.
I believe a whopping 13 people have. So how's that for a pretty razor sharp needle?
13 people have. But anyways, put it out there. You know what I mean? You never know who it's going to resonate with, and you don't know who it's going to consistently resonate with. Right. And if those people find other people, next thing you know, you have a community.
Yeah. I really believe in the make something so specific it's universal thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I do that very well, but I believe in that. You make it relatable.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to be relatable.
You also want to be genuine, and the only way to be genuine is to be you, because there's definitely not another you out there. No. So if you are worried that your content isn't going to mirror that of somebody else's, then you're kind of defeating yourself before you're out of the gate, right?
Right. So we have that aspect of my life.
Right.
And thank you for hearing me out.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. That's wild.
What it's all hopefully growing toward is, the finished product music. I want to make music my life. I've got this really great band that can go 2-3 different directions. I've got another really great band that can go 2 or 3 different directions. And then I've got sort of the Joe Sixpack work-a-day sort of thing I could do to make music my life. Lessons and, cocktail bars, that sort of thing, which is where I think I need to focus on all of them all at once. But I'm really anxious. And are you familiar with the difference between anxious and eager? This is a pet peeve of mine linguistically, big time.
Okay, so I would say officially no, I don't know, but my instinct tells me eager is a positive motivation towards engaging, whereas anxiety would be a fear or a hesitation or
Exactly.
reluctancy.
And so many people say they're
that-
anxious for Christmas morning.
It's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. You're eager. So I do have a little anxiety about how this is going to work out, because I mean I'd love the ideal, the top shelf where I'm playing original music and everybody's coming to see me play my original music, and that's how I'm eating. But there's also the piano lessons and playing the little thing. Like I can see how I'm directing my life more towards music, and however it lands, I'm going to be happy. I want to keep this streak going where for the last 8 years I've been happier than the year before.
Right.
Yeah. I need to keep that running.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to when you have it's almost like a sport. You tie together a series of wins, then that loss hits, and how do you bounce back from that loss? And if you've got a consistent momentum of happier years, then by all means keep on moving.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's funny you mentioned about that anxiety thing versus eagerness. I was as I've mentioned on the podcast, I'm coming back from a loss myself, figuratively speaking. I strung together a lot of really good wins for years, and last year was probably my championship year. And then this year, the end of last year, the beginning of this
rebuilding year
has been. This is one of those ones where it's like maybe Rocky's never going to fight again. And so, just like an athlete who's suffering a loss and needs to bounce back does, and go get a trainer, go get a sports psychologist. I've been talking to some people the good people over at Kaiser Permanente Psychiatry to try to figure out, am I just normal or is there something else going on here that I can't bounce back like I used to? And I was thinking that there was some sort of like people say, "Oh, I'm OCD," or I'm ADD, or I'm bipolar, and all these terms.
ADHD, that's a huge thing in this country.
Yeah, that gets tossed around. And I was going through a series of tests and questions, because these are all evaluations at this point. We're just kicking the tires and seeing, what the pressure's like. And one of them, I have a questionnaire I might have you fill out before you leave. It's just this thing of like people around you, because you have your own perception of yourself, and then they want to know what other people think about you. But one of the things that I thought they were going towards in the ADD conversation became a conversation about anxiety, going back to anxiety versus eagerness, which is ADD can be confused for anxiety, because ADD would be like, oh, I'm so distracted about this, or I'm distracted with that. But really what it is it comes down to your anxiety about certain things. So whether your anxiety is that you're not completing what you need to do on a daily basis with your life, well, that can result in ADD because you're not doing one thing at a time. You're trying to do too much at once, or you're really anxious about people coming over, so you're lightly dusting this and you're kind of doing the dishes, and so people can get diagnosed in a sense, maybe self-diagnosed as, oh, I have ADD, when really you just have anxiety.
Right.
Sorry, just a couple of things I'm discovering. Not that I didn't care about the whole psychology thing, because I was really interested when I was younger, but now it's kind of funny to get people's feedback and think of things like, oh, that was when I was having an ADD moment. It's like, no, that was probably an anxiety moment.
Right. There's the whole 80-20 rule that happens too. Like the hardest, like the last 20% of any project takes 80% of the time.
Right.
And then consequently you have all these things not done. They're all sort of done, but none of them are really done. And then the anxiety comes in because you're not finishing anything, getting anywhere. I empathize with that completely. And that's where this Kickstarter thing is just gnawing at me. I have, these opposing viewpoints from different people, like, oh, it's not ready yet. Don't do it until it's absolutely ready. And the other part of me that just wants to just fucking do it. I've looked at a bunch, and I'm not as ready as I should be. They look really pro. Have you kind of perused?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Kickstarter videos.
And the whole storyline. Like, it took me, here's the old guy moment where I'm trying to put my page together, And I'm looking at all these pages with all these pictures, and it's like, how the hell do I put a picture in? And I literally spent 3 hours Googling all this in-depth troubleshooting nonsense, where it all culminates in 3 hours of nothing and an email to tech support from them. I get up the next morning and I just sort of stumble on, you just have to be on the storyline page, and then there's this toolbar at the top, and you click picture, video, whatever the heck you want it to be, and it goes. It bone simple. But I took 3 hours the night before trying every esoteric way other than the actual way of doing it.
Oh, it happens to us all. I did the same thing building your website. There were certain things where I was just like, how the fuck is this not a feature on this website? Walked away, came back, was like, the feature's sitting right there, actually. Right. So why don't you relax?
For sure.
So don't feel too bad about that. That happens to all of us.
I was going to say something in that exact same vein, and then it evaporated, as many things do.
Mm-hmm.
So I did figure out how to do it. We now have pictures. We don't have any more shows booked, and that, you want to talk about anxiety? That's anxiety, because I feel like, to me, a band is only as permanent as its next show, and we don't have one. And I feel like play dates, that they're like a security. Like, okay, we are a band. We're playing here a week from Thursday. So we don't have that. So that sort of makes me nervous.
But aren't you trying to raise money to do a studio album?
Right. So then we circle back to the Kickstarter, which hasn't launched. Yeah. So we need to do...
Because I think we've talked about this before. I was half in the bag last time we talked about this, but I think that in lieu of live shows, couldn't your studio album, the Kickstarter, take place of the live show, so that way you guys can focus on that?
So what's the trajectory to that? The next step being creating the page. And
I say you say fuck it, just throw whatever you have on there and let it evolve.
I did it once before, and I worked really hard on a Kickstarter page, and it didn't go anywhere. I think what happened was, it was this other band called Tabernacle that I was in, where, without going all into it, it was an instrumental band, sort of jazz rock driven. Bass player sort of went the same way. The singer that I wrote the song, he took his life as well. And when he did, we wanted to get this album put out. And I think the problem is it was too earnest. The funny ones are the ones that get funded.
Right.
And
I agree with you.
You got to be funny.
There's a million Vine videos out there that people enjoy, and like one Coney video.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
there's one like Sarah McLachlan commercial, but there's a million Doritos commercials that make you laugh your ass off.
Yes,
and you enjoy those
exactly,
way more.
Exactly.
Same with people. Funny people are so much better than like that one inspirational serious dude. Yeah. It's like you get one of those for every like
lifetime,
10 friends or 100 friends I have in my bucket. Like, I can't have too many serious people.
But there's nothing harder than funny. Like, there's no harder artistic profession than being a stand-up comedian to me.
Oh, yeah,
there's
absolutely.
Nothing harder than that. And you watch these videos and they all start with like, oh, hey, there you are. Or, let me tell you something serious about my whatever. What's my pitch? What the hell is my pitch? I feel like I've got these 8 or 10 songs that really lend themselves to being produced well, recorded well, and they're going to sound good, and somebody's going to want them. That's what I know. Mm-hmm. And I know it's going to cost about $4,000 to do it. How do I put that into a nice page?
Yeah. Maybe that was it right there. That could be your angle. How do I build a Kickstarter for this Kickstarter? Right. And then it's all about your hesitations and you're not knowing. And then people can get involved because they're trying to help you build this Kickstarter, which they don't realize is actually...
a Kickstarter page for a Kickstarter page.
Yeah, there you go. And that's your shtick. Is it's like, I'm here. I spent 3 hours with tech support. I can't get a picture on this thing. So I don't know how I'm gonna get to $4,000 if I can't get this Kickstarter. So somebody fucking help me out.
Totally.
I mean, that's it right there. Like I said, back to being genuine and original. Your flavor is your flavor, nobody else's.
It's like that Jack Black song, the tribute song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not the greatest song ever. This is just a tribute to the greatest song ever that we played and now can't remember.
Oh wow, no, I've never heard that song.
You've never heard that song?
No, but I like that concept.
I'm not a huge Jack Black
I was
fan,
gonna say me either. That's why.
but
I've never heard of it.
it's what's the name of the band? Tenacious D.
Yeah, Tenacious D.
Yeah, and it's tribute song, and it's all about, you know, they were walking down the road, and the devil came up and just played the best song that has absolutely ever been, and they played it, and then now they can't remember it, and the song is a tribute to that song.
Right.
It's not the actual song.
It's like when you have, I don't know if you ever had like dreams where like there's maybe a sentimental item or maybe it's like a large sum of money or whatever, pot of gold, and you know you're waking up and you're clutching at it to try to maintain it after you wake up, and you're grabbing it enough.
I've had some of that, clinging to it for sure.
I had one last night. It wasn't clinging to an actual object, but to a situation that I would, you daydream about a situation when you're a kid hitting that game-winning home run. Yeah. I was hitting that game-winning home run in a sense in this dream, and I woke up this morning. I'm like, even at your age, you still don't realize like you're not gonna wake up to that reality.
I've never had a sports dream in my life.
Oh yeah, no. This wasn't a sports dream either. I was just using it. I'm staring at a painting of a guy sliding into third base over here, and I just threw baseball out there. But no. But going back to what you were talking about is I think it goes back. So the Kickstarter, building a Kickstarter for the Kickstarter goes back to the original conversation of putting content out there.
Right.
And I still think that maybe because I'm just a big fan of you is that your lane is the lane that you're in now. So trying to do a Kickstarter video that rivals other Kickstarter videos is negating the whole essence of why I got involved, right? So if you want someone who doesn't know you to get involved, I got involved because of who you are and your building the Kickstarter. You're trying to get the band together, you're trying to get your social media together, you're trying to get more of an online presence, and that attracted me to be like, oh yeah, let's figure out how I can help you do that. So I think that's kind of how the Kickstarter would gain traction is in that sense.
Well, we had airline problems.
Yeah, last time.
And now we have
there?
construction.
This is great.
It is great.
I'm going to close this door and see if that helps.
Gotta love it. Oh, gosh. I've now lived here long enough where SoCal doesn't have a smell anymore.
It had a smell?
When I first... Oh, you move here from the Northeast? There is a fragrance to Southern California.
How would you describe that?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's summer. It's all the time summer. Is what it is. That's empty, oddly enough. Oh, okay. It's just summer all the time. I first moved here in November. It's like, why isn't anyone at the beach?
Right.
And then you live here long enough, and you realize you come to figure out what a shitty day is in San Diego. It's known as a cloudy day in the rest of the world.
I was under the impression that there were no shitty days down here, but no, I get you. And being next to the beach, you get a lot more cloudy days than you do 2, 3, 4, 5 miles inland. There's days where just going into San Diego City, like downtown, where I'm like, Jesus, like the sun just pops up a mile or two from here. Then you come in here as a marine layer that'll sit for 4 or 5 days, which is fine with me. I don't care.
Because the other thing you don't get is 110-degree days.
Yeah,
here.
exactly. Well, that's one thing I've been telling my friends and everybody around here is people are talking about this June gloom. And I'm like, do you remember not too long ago when people were dying and air conditioners and heater or air conditioners and fans were sold out everywhere because we're not exactly equipped for hot here either because I have a heater, but I don't have an air conditioner.
Right.
And living by the ocean, I get the breeze, but it doesn't escape.
No.
So for all those people that hate on June gloom, I'm like, remember how bad it is in August. You know what I mean?
Right.
It gets pretty hot out here because it's just we're not equipped for it, so we get punked out.
Totally. Just want to kind of tie this up. You said something like to fill out where you look at
a form like a questionnaire.
When I was in 10th grade, I want to say. 10th or junior, maybe. I think it was a junior. I had this one teacher, Mrs. Betancourt. She was a science teacher. But we did this one thing where you had like a piece of paper on your back, and everybody wrote something about you on that piece of paper. You don't know who was writing what.
Wait, so it's one piece of paper.
We were a class of 30 kids.
Okay.
Take a piece of paper, you tape it on your back. Everybody's got a little marker.
Oh, so you're going to have a list of characteristics on your back, not just one.
You come on and you just write whatever you want that describes me.
Okay.
To you.
Okay.
And it was very interesting. You know, it was.
What was on your back?
And
how old were you?
I was in 11th grade.
Okay,
so I was
so
a
you're
junior in
junior,
high school.
so you're about
and I was in a class.
15.
Yeah.
16,
17.
16, 17, yeah.
Yeah.
What am I talking about?
I remember, like, good listener, which is odd at this point because all I do is talk at this point. It's hard for me. I do like to listen, but I don't do it often enough or well enough. I remember, you know, and this is just pure vanity. It's like, who said this? Like the blue eyes. That's all it said. And it's like, who wrote that? And of course, your imagination tells you it's the hottest chick in the room is the one that wrote that.
Absolutely,
that's right.
Of course.
I believe I still have it somewhere. I still have that, and I still have all the cards that were sent to me when I was in 3rd grade, and I had spinal meningitis, and the entire the entire 3rd grade class sent me cards.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I still have both of those. I'm with paper. I am so freaking sentimental. It's ridiculous.
Huh. Well, it's a dying art.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Well, I mean, if it all went down today and tomorrow was the apocalypse, I have a Tupperware thing of pictures, a Rubbermaid of pictures, but that ended in 2001 or 2002. So everything I have on Facebook, Instagram, my MacBook, this conversation that we have that we're streaming, the audio and video,
When it goes
it's all gone.
Yeah,
it's all gone. So I mean, kudos to you for having the paper collection.
It's still really old shit. Like what will the curled up Polaroid be 25 years from now?
The one that the Kodak printout right
That's
now.
a 75-year-old by that point.
Yeah.
You know, although those are back.
Yeah.
Fuji makes them.
You know what I laugh at is when you go through those pictures, it's not necessarily the ones that are sentimental, but the ones that you look at and like, oh, that's right, we didn't have a delete button back then. When you took it had to count, and when it didn't count. I mean, some people wasted entire rolls. You remember getting an entire roll, and like, not a single one came out. 28 pictures or whatever the count was. None of them came out. That was $6 or whatever it was down the drain.
Exactly.
I still love it when people come to and they're like, oh, what's this memory card for? Or how do I get the pictures off of here? I'm like, okay, well, you know, this memory card saves all your pictures and videos so that you can, I don't know, transfer them to your next phone or computer. And they're like, oh, or I can print them. I'm like, yeah, you can print them. When's the last time anybody printed a picture off of their phone?
Right.
And that's, I mean,
the average. The median age for doing that is 73.
It's got to be. It's got to be. Well, and that's one thing, too, you and I deal with, and you deal with it more than I do when we deal with the public, is the only people who come into cell phone stores are those people who don't know how to use or figure out their cell phone. Right. So we get the people that are asking, how do they print? And I'm like, I don't know. Right. Do you have a wireless printer with photo paper? Right. They're like, excuse me, what? I'm just like, okay, take this plastic card and give it to the guy at Target, and he'll take care of the rest.
First thing you got to do is buy this, and then we can keep talking.
Or in my case, talk to me all day and don't buy anything, and that's
you got to buy something from me. You got to buy. I'll talk to you all day, but you got to buy something. I'll shut up.
My philosophy is always just like, okay, this poor person doesn't need to be taken to the cleaners. They're lucky they got me. I'm gonna get them in and out, and then I'll move on to somebody else who's ready to spend some money. And then sometimes those are the ones that But
you could push the little something. Get the little, like for me, somebody's got to get, and this is very inside baseball what we're doing now, you know. But like if you're working with
we're talking about being salespeople.
Retail 101. If you're not willing to buy that $49.99 or that $24.99 something from me, while you've got I'm out, and I'll give you like, you know, a 50. I'll give you a good long time, but then I'll present the little something you need to buy. And I'm gonna get online. Like, okay, we're done.
You can go now find your answers online.
And it ends right there. Yeah, and I don't make it like you don't have to get this big thing, but you need to get a little something from old Mike if this is going to keep going.
Right.
And when they say no, I quit. And people get it. I'm being pretty transparent with what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, you need this, but this is what's happening here.
I like to be the stripper that makes you believe that she really wants to be your girlfriend.
Right. Well,
I don't want you to know the money's coming out. I'm just gonna keep going until you love me, and then I'm gonna drop the bomb on you. Oh yeah, by the way, that's gonna be $3,000.
Right.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed this conversation too, but it's gonna be for 24 months.
Right.
and
Exactly.
you're gonna keep paying every month for 24 months, and then we'll talk again.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, aside from we did the podcast. For those of you who may be listening to this and not listened to the last podcast, I had Mike on last time, and this is the follow up to that podcast. But I wanted to have a conversation with you away from music, and really start figuring out like what is it. So away from like the music and the Kickstarter and all that stuff, on your day to day, you kind of alluded to it, which was like the piano lessons and all that. How do you not just start making that transition into more live shows and more performances, but how do you transition out of retail? And like you said, have you thought about doing the piano gigs, or doing the weddings or the wine bars?
To do that sort of thing, I would need to devote a lot of practice time to it.
Oh, okay. You think you're not ready?
Do those things, you need to have an arsenal of, hey, play Misty for me. I need to do
you got to be an on-demand guy.
Which would probably take about 6 months of hard work,
Right.
that I'm not doing right now because I don't think I'll ever have to.
So what does that entail? Like you have to research the classics and then start jamming them.
They're called. It's like I've never really used them much. They're called fake books.
Okay.
And it's a book that's about that thick, and it's got every jazz standard you've ever heard of.
Oh, wow.
And it just has the little lick that you would hear that as the consumer and say, I know that song. It shows you that.
Gotcha.
And how to fake it. And the thing is, the more you do them, the formulas then begin to present themselves like anything else, and you get better at it. But I've never really...
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, that's what like Joe and Chris Reed, the bass player and the guitar player from Human Error, they can read those very, very well, and they go a little bit beyond that, where really start
ad-libbing.
No, it's the opposite. They play it like classical music. They'll play like that Charlie Parker part is going to be fucking exact. Granted, I'm mentioning a horn player and these are string players, but
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
They'll match whatever that part is, note for stinking note. Like somebody would play Mozart or Beethoven.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I
like a surgeon.
Yeah, I managed to pull off at the last show was I did my first foray into the cheat part. Was I looked at it's Miles Davis. So what? It's really just 4 piano chords.
Huh.
He just goes bum bum doo 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 bum bum.
Okay.
Then it goes up bum bum. You do those 4 things, and people are gonna say he knows what he's doing. And that's all I did. And people looked and said he knows what he's doing. And I was faking it completely.
Nice.
That was my first little thing, because like I couldn't really tell you the inner workings of that song, and it's a pretty intricate song.
Right.
But I knew when to go bum bum.
Right.
And that's all I needed. So that's the workaday thing, where I could find somebody like Chris and Joe, or exactly Chris and Joe and Austin. I feel like that's something I can do. But I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
I hear you.
I want to do the other thing, and I want to give the other thing its full on due before I fall back to the other.
Yeah, I only ask because it kind of reminds me of the parallel of, I know guys that are aspiring professional athletes, like in the fighting world, and they have to moonlight as bartenders or bouncers, right. Or you got to be a security guard at your local liquor store, or something like that, before they can transition into being a professional, what they want to do. So I was just curious if you were looking at replacing your sales job and then be doing something for income that's music related before you make that
Right.
big jump.
If I could really, really network and push and just get students, say at $50 an hour, which is going to your house, that's pretty standard. That's not crazy. You have 15 students a week, that's $750 a week.
Yeah. Or if you could do, you could do $200 a day.
Lots of ways, and but there too, teaching is. I've got 2 students. One of them, Fred. Just want to show him.
Love that guy.
Just want to show him enough that he can get up and sing and play something in public, and it'll impress the girls that are there.
He wants to have his Harry Connick Jr. moment,
which he can do.
Yeah, of course,
it's the faking it part.
Good for you, Freddie P.
And then you have this other kid that I teach. He's 14 years old, and he is so his dad just wants him to play blues and rock and whatnot so they can jam because his dad's a guitar player. The kid's a drummer as well. But he just wants to play Beethoven, Satie, Mozart, that sort of thing. That's what he wants to play. And he works hard at it. So if you're teaching somebody and that person's just working at it and doing it, it's so much fun. But, they're mostly not like that,
Right.
Most kids aren't like that. Even adults, I just want to be great,
Right.
I don't want to practice, but I just want to be great. We'll see how it goes. I think teaching is the bottom rung of what I want.
Okay, yeah, I'm unaware, so sorry if I was insulting you with that, but I didn't know. Have you ever seen that movie, Man on Fire? Well, the Denzel Washington version.
I know the movie, but haven't seen it.
So there's a scene there's a series of scenes. It's a chunk of the movie where Denzel Washington is training Dakota Fanning because she's concerned with the swim meet, and so they're drilling the swim meet. They're in the backyard. He's shooting the gun. She's swimming. It's all that. But what's getting in the way of her progress before this big swim meet is piano lessons. Yeah. And so that's kind of goes back to what you're saying, right? Is that you're not going to get people that are super attentive. And this little girl was I think she was fake burping every 10 seconds. So the piano teacher was disgusted and kicks her out of class, which ultimately, spoiler alert, is the scene that gets Denzel Washington almost murdered and her ass hijacked, and which really kicks off the whole movie. As if she would have just paid attention in piano class, you wouldn't have got kidnapped, you wouldn't have got Denzel shot. Now Christopher Walken's involved, and it's a whole mess because you didn't pay fucking attention in piano class. Anyways,
that's the moral of that story.
That's a Man on Fire in my eyes, right there.
Cool.
So
this has been fun.
Yeah. How far are we into this?
We're pretty far.
45 minutes in. Now we'll do that. We should probably cut this soon because then I could tack 15 minutes of other bullshit onto this. And
you can put that video that you saw.
Oh, I could actually. I could strip the audio too. Maybe I'll close with that. Maybe I'll strip the audio and I'll close this podcast. Let's see if I remember that. Close the podcast with that song. Maybe probably even layer it in the background right now.
There you go.
Just kind of fade in and out. All right, well, we're going to get going. Mike's got to get going. Thank you for listening. Mike, you got anything you want to plug? Your website, social?
Social everything.
Social everything.
NaultMusic.com, Human Error Group at Gmail is our address. Look up Human Error Group on Instagram. And wait for that Kickstarter to promote the Kickstarter.
The Kickstarter for the Kickstarter. If you have suggestions, send them to Mike, send them to me. Ventures Michael Lee Podcast for Mike and Human Error saying peace.
and fake